Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Bringing you coverage of the LJL 2020-21 spring. No, 2021, not 2020. God, I don't want to go back in
time
time,
travel
man.
continues.
Oh my! But with this game, we might feel like time traveling. Afterwards, we'll have to ask Nymera how he feels about that one. LJLOU here, bringing you that coverage. Moss one, Initialize, and Nymera. Gentlemen, welcome back to the desk. Coming into this final coverage of live coverage before we start doing our blast from the past coverage. This is going to be Burning Core facing off against Crest Gaming Act. And gentlemen, this is an important battle for both these teams because this is going to help decide who's going to be making playoffs. Detonation Focus Me, Rascal Jester, and V3, assuming everything goes as it is, have locked their spots in playoffs. Now, they haven't locked their position in playoffs. They don't know if first, second, third, or any of that placement, but they have locked their spot in, meaning we need to start figuring out who the other players are going to be. And this match is going to be a big decider of that. Is Crest Gaming Act going to kind of get themselves a good blanket or good cushion with 5 wins, or is Burning Core going to secure themselves at least a win above Axis and the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks?
I think to begin with, if Burning Core wants to contest with CGA, they need to be laning better, flat out, because for all that CGA have got their flaws, normally from just overreaching and going for fiestas on certain players, or not running flash on Carthus versus people like Leona, we have seen some serious laning prowess out of certain members of this squad. Nation has consistently put up excellent stats, even in losses. Nap, as well, has largely been very impressive, and Cassin, again, has had his moments. For Burning Core, they have been so hyper-reliant on either Gadiari turning up for a game, which has been pretty inconsistent, or once in Rayfaki getting ahead because I'm proud on an engaged champion. Everything else has been a little bit more suspect.
Yeah, and that suspect has made us question some of the plays and positioning of Burning Core. But let's be real, Crest Gaming Act don't get out of the blue when it comes to that Nightmare, do they?
No, they don't. They've had a fair share of their own issues across the board with their members. I mean, I look at... I mean, Cassin has had some great games. He's also had some pretty awful ones, right? And the same can be said now of Milan, right? There was a time when... in that last game where it was, of course, that Carthus and that Xayah stood at the Soul Point Dragon for like the Soul Dragon for CGA, and they're sat there against V3 on the cusp of securing a victory, which might secure them victory. And then Xayah with Flash, Ult, Gale Force gets hit by a Leona Flare, which is by Leona that's in vision right in front of them. Carthus doesn't have Flash, has exhausted Zed. You can kind of understand that he was going to get hit by that. There was no counterplay once he was in that position. The counterplay's not being there in the first place. Whereas Milan, I'm sat there, I'm like, between that and also a snafu at Baron too, where he has similar disengage tools available and then gets hit by a shockwave after getting knocked up by Baron, it just felt like Milan was just out of sorts. Just very out of sorts, and it cost his team the game in two crucial team fights.
This is what we've had a bit of worries around the Crest Gaming Act team. While there are like 3 veterans on this side of this with Alchemy, Nation, and Nap. They're all been playing in competitive leagues for a long time. Cassin and Milan, this is their first time in, and we did have these questions at the very beginning when we came in to the split, and sadly, those fears that we had, or questions that we had, have started to become a bit true. However, on the side of Burning Core, gentlemen, this was a team of veterans. This was a team we were all very amped and excited to see. We had very high expectations coming into them. And Initialize, what's going wrong with Burning Core? I thought they fixed it by now, right?
Part of their problem is that the way they used to win was basically having once run rampant with Rayfaki to back him up and hoping that somebody else would come along, and having Proud roam around and back them up, and that 3-man core would just run over games, and they wouldn't let lanes be stable because they were too busy pulling off plays to allow them to be stable. That hasn't really been the case as it stands right now. Part of that's champions in meta, part of that is just players, the way players are going on. And part of it as well is I don't think Gadiado is as keen to roam to help out once as some other mid laners have been right now. And that is a problem too. And so the playstyle that was really working for them isn't anymore. and it's kind of unveiling some laning problems, particularly in bot lane. Ray Farkey largely able to stay at least even, and Galliardo falls a little bit, but it's not like it's a game losing position necessarily. The problem is they don't then have a point of strength, is I guess what I'm going at, especially unless you're willing to really index into something like a Camille top, which they haven't really shown they want to do yet, because that's their bot lane
Where's the
exposed.
Jace been?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that Jace could be a pick. They haven't shown it yet, and I wonder when or if rather we will ever see it. If we want to bring in some historic facts, as I always love to bring up a little bit of history here. When you have a matchup between Crest Gaming Act versus Burning Core, currently Crest Gaming Act have a 12-win advantage over Burning Core, who only have 6 wins to their name. So it's 6-12, 6 wins disparity between them. Rather even, which is rather impressive. That's a 66 win rate for one of these teams, but that's obviously throughout all of history for the LJL.
Yeah, these teams have been around for a little while in the LJL. I mean, in 2020, Burning Core CGA was like the match to watch. This was the match where you would turn up and say, if it's not got DFM in it, this is the game you want to watch. And heck, actually even including DFM, this would be the scrappiest, most exciting, largest team fighting game. This is when we had Gango and Arya on the CGA roster. This is when Burning Core still had Ray Farkey, who was in, of course, in much better form at that point. They had themselves Yuji Orochi in that mid lane. It just seemed like there was nothing you could do to stop these players going for the throat, and they do that a good, like, dozen times in a game.
I do love that magic card as well. Not being able to destroy artifacts is helpful. Just hopefully that we don't have Reiner on that Blitzcrank this time around. The Rock and Stone Golem might be seen in this matchup, but let's go back all the way to week 1 for Burning Core Crest Gaming Actors. This is when they actually first faced off. We haven't seen them face off since, for obvious reasons. This is the second round robin. And back in week 1, this was a Burning Core that looked pretty strong, to say the least. This was a 26-minute game where Burning Core rather definitively picked apart Crest Gaming Act, and we had some of these concerns around Kassin and around Milan. This is when Kassin played that Xin Zhao for the first ever time. And this is where Once got to play the Talia and absolutely ran around with the combo of Renekton. And do we still have that? When we first watched this, I think we came in going, I think Burning Core should win this. There's a bunch of rookies on the side of Crest Gaming Act. It depends how the players are doing that. Coming into now, what's your thoughts, gentlemen?
I think it is unlikely that Cassin and Nation int into the tower at level 1 or 2 and give 2 kills to Galliardo, and then at the same time you have a 2v2 win for Yuhi and Proud that puts them miles ahead. That is a very unusual game state. Perhaps not necessarily when Cassin's in. He does like to go for these aggressive, risky dives, but all the same, that feels a little bit fluky. And I do think CGA have largely shown more consistent mechanical options to win a game than I have seen out of Burning Core in recent weeks.
Any changes for you, Nightmare? Obviously, week 1, Burning Core and Crest Gaming was very different to weeks, to week 6 now.
Yeah, I mean, there's every chance that CJ throw it very early into the game, but it's not like Burning Core have really been the team to catch those throws. Where this matchup gets interesting is that where these teams are strong, they are strong together on both sides of the Rift, and where they're weak, they're kind of weak on both sides of the Rift. I look at both these bot lanes, and I'm thinking, actually, both these teams are probably looking at the other bot lane and think, oh, thank God. We're not against Reiner. We're not against, NT.
We're not against Gango.
NT or Gango. Right? You're against 2 struggling bot laners, which means that maybe these teams have a platform on the bot side of the map to actually play around for the first time in quite a long time for both these teams. I mean, we just saw what happened to Yuhi and Proud. I mean, and it was not pretty for Milan and Alchemy earlier in the day either. Both of them are probably wiping off their brows and thinking, okay, good. That's the hard one done. Let's see what we can do against these bot lanes, right?
See how these two teams face out, gentlemen. I do have to come to you both for those predictions, as these predictions are far more important than some of the other games we've had today, as placement for playoffs had already been soft-locked for them. So, coming to you, Nightmare, first, who are you going with for this game?
I'm going to go with CGA. I think that Burning Core have been a little weaker than CGA in some regards, and I do think that there are some play patterns which CGA have shown a lot of strength in.
Okay. Initialize, who are you going with?
I think the smart money is probably on Burning Core, but sorry, not on Surge CGA rather. But I'm gonna go Burning Core because in my predictions I've done it, and this is how I get ahead of the prediction game. And I also do think there are some ways that they can do it. I think they've got experience in the top side of the map, and I don't necessarily expect Milan and Alchemy to punish the weakness. And if they can draft right, I still have faith in Once and Wayfarky.
Oh, I think there is always faith in Burning Core, especially with Once and Rayfarky. There's always a chance they could just turn it on and hard carry a game. I am siding with Nymera as well as the rest of our a majority of our community who are also taking the smart money bet and going for Crest Gaming Act. But there are a few of you out there, Initialize, that are looking to get those extra few points and maybe spike it. And this is definitely a spot where it could absolutely happen. With that said, I've just been notified that Pick and Ban phase has just started. So, gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mass. One CGA will be over on the blue side. Burning Core over on the red. Nap, Cassin, Nation, Milan, and Alchemy is rounding out that Crest Gaming Out roster.
Burning Core, of course, have Rayfarky, Once Gadadu, Yuhi, and Proud. Two blue sides of the rift, just in different shades, and not really anything more similar between these two teams, though, as these bands are relatively diverse.
They are relatively diverse. I think potentially banning away the Twisted Fate and the Lucian away from Nation makes sense to me. Weak side, but also strong side split pushing Narp, just off the table. Senna, Seraphine, Olaf all make sense as strong options. Well, and that leaves Udyr to be left open for the first pick, and Burning Core hovering at Ivern, which would be a bold choice right now, but hey, who knows?
We had seen solo lane Ivern from V3 once in this split so far. I believe that's the only Ivern pick we have had in the LJL in spring. It was a win, and I believe it was with the Udyr, actually, instead of against it when that was played. So it's going to be the Kai'Sa locked into the Udyr. Now, I seem to remember that Kai'Sa, well, Kai'Sa has been played an awful lot this split, don't get me wrong, this year in general. So is Udyr at this point. I seem to remember that Kai'Sa actually has a decent win rate versus that Udyr, though, as they struggle to close the distance versus that Void AD carry.
Once again locks in his Graves. He did, in all honesty, have a pretty good game on the Graves in the last game, especially considering his lanes were falling apart. I actually think Once did a fairly decent job, got a few kills, got some advantages, set up the vertical jungling. Like, there was a lot there that went well, but when your lanes kind of crumble beside you, there's not that much that can be done. I don't necessarily hate the option here if you do want to give some carry to Once, though. I grant you, it's not been as successful as I'm sure Burning Core would have liked.
No, probably not. That's but then again, not as successful as Burning Core would have liked. It is a story of their split. Yeah. And you could same could be said for CGA. CGA came in with a strong summer split. They had a very strong regular season. Playoffs they would have wished they could have carried a little further. Didn't end up happening for them, and now they come back with a changed roster. Little has changed for them in the AD carry role, though, because Milan has picked up that ADC of Xayah for the third time in this split, and the second time in Super Week so far.
So we have got ourselves what is likely to be another Gragas game for Rayfarky, though of course it is still flexible. That can go down towards the bot lane. To the side, CJ have locked in Xayah Thresh, exceptionally safe option for them, alongside the Udyr, which has just been high priority wherever you look around the globe. Through into the second phase of bans, though. Renekton is taken off the table. Another one of those sort of safe, brawlery, blind, pickable top laners. I wonder whether they'll continue to focus at Nap here.
Nap has been a prominent Renekton player. He's probably been one of the better Renekton players, dare I say, in the LJL too.
I think
that's say that Ebby is up there, Afferman is up there, Paz has not been bad in his own right, but Nap's Renekton, particularly in team fights, if not in lane, has been a sight to behold, given the right direction heading into those fights. Proud, though, has been on the other side of the map, and the other role has the Rel banned away from him, so a playmaker removed from the support role.
A couple playmakers removed from the support role. Of course, Proud is a Blitzcrank player as well. He won't get his hands on it, though. And it was Sion as that final ban for Burning Core to continue that focus on Nap and those blind pickable options. Nocturne would be a bold choice here, and it would probably have to go into a... It would probably indeed have to be a mid lane pick unless Rayfarky is designed to be exceptionally crazy. Instead, they lock in the Alistair, which I think makes much more sense. And yesterday, Burning Core's win came on the back of Proud putting on a monster performance on the Alistair. Both defensively and offensively, so always good to see him back on the playmaking cow. CGA have got themselves more picks to go for here.
They do. I mean, heck, we did just see that Proud had a bit of an awkward game on the Karma last game. Not really much they could do within that game, but still ended up losing that laning phase, which is where you want to start making things stick as the Karma. We'll, of course, have more of that playmaking teamfight potential from the Mad Cow on the bot lane. And on the other side, Volibear, we don't see too much of that in the current meta anymore. We see a fair amount of it in the LEC, I suppose, here from the likes of a couple of Whippo games and whatever. But that will be locked in for Nap now that the Renekton is gone. And it feels like Volibear is just another version of the Renekton, has a strong laning phase, does well into a couple of brawler matchups, and is a suitable blind pick for most situations.
Indeed, and we've now got a CGA comp that is got frontline, it's got DPS, it's looking pretty standard back to front with a few engage options. Final pick will be Galliardo back onto that Azir. It'll be Ray Farkey going towards the Gragas. So that's a very similar comp to what we saw last time from Burning Corp, but instead of the Ezreal Karma, they've gone towards Kai'Sa Alistair.
It is, and that's a less... Well, it's not as if this is a weak 2v2. You can definitely play around Kai'Sa Alistair. It's a kill lane, because, of course, you have the double CC coming in from the headbutt Pulverize. That gives you 2 stacks of Kai'Sa's Plasma, which means that you can get a single auto into a W, and that's already your passive proc. And then you still got Halo Blades autos coming in anyway. You get caught up by the Alistair Kai'Sa, a lot of burst damage does tend to follow. So, yes, a little bit of similar stuff for Burning Core. On the other side, I mean, we still have... relatively similar roles for each of the players.
Sure.
What they're performing within that team. Nap, especially on the Volibear, I suppose, is the one to look at that and saying, yeah, he's going to be a disruptive off-tank bruiser in that top side. And so I don't think anyone's got significant draft leads in this game.
No, I kind of agree that there's very similar roles for most players across the game, with perhaps the exception of the bot lane from CGA being much more about the disengage, where Yuhi and Proud have definitely drafted much more for the engage options.
There is, but then if you get a hook into Feather Recall, then that's still a pick combo too, and you just don't have to commit Thrash's body to it. You can just throw out the death sentence and see if you can play around that, I suppose. Once being back on Graves is another thing to talk about. Kind of failed to make the most of this pick in this split, because he's tried to duel quite a lot. He's failed to duel quite a lot. Saw that just against Crash earlier in the day, and it wasn't that pretty. So we're looking now across this board saying, okay, top lane's going to be a bit of a wash. Once doesn't necessarily want to tangle with Udyr in all situations, but that's a little bit of a wash too. Mid lane, Azir versus Victor. We've seen that one for like 5 seasons now, folks.
We know how
and
that
then the
works.
bot lane again, we've talked about how, you know, both of these have their own identities as these bot lanes. One's a little bit more disengaged, one's a little bit more all in. Both of them have ways to play around it. It's even in the laning phase, it'll have to come down to those team fights to me.
I tend to agree, and that does mean those early Dragon fights, those early Herald fights could be quite decisive, because one team fight comp that gets ahead gets the team fight better than the other team fight comp, and that can be really problematic. So definitely keep your eyes on probably that first Dragon fight, I imagine around similar sort of time, potentially to that Herald spawning around 8 minutes as well. As generally speaking, first Dragon...
The LJL.
Yeah, first Dragon...
This is the LJL. First Dragon and Herald, they can get a bit spicy. One thing which has been, I suppose, a little strange to me over the last couple of days, which I've been casting a Super Week, particularly in the Sengoku games, is that we haven't seen so many of those first Dragon fights, the first Herald fights.
That's interesting, true.
Yeah, particularly teams like DFM have done very well around punishing teams going for that first Herald and not approaching it appropriately. Burning Core tried to do that last game with Ray Farkey wandering down to that Herald.
Yeah, try.
They just got out-muscled. They got out-muscled, didn't really kind of come into a full fruition fight. However, both these teams looking, as Lexi was saying on the dash, really pushing the point that this is important for playoffs. It would be, if Burning Core do win this game, it evens them up with CGA at 4 and 8 after the first 12 games with only 2 games left to play. And just behind them will be a group of 2 teams in, I believe it's Axis and the Hawks, stuck at 3 and 9. So this is a chance for CGA to pull away from the group and a chance for Burning Core to similarly not have themselves left at the bottom of the table.
To not pull away from, to pull into the group, so to speak. I agree. And I'm going to see a bit of a 5-man, I would say 5-man fan, but Proud will muscle his way into the jungle and stick down a ward on the red buff, so they'll know what's going on with that. And but I don't have the stats to back this up, but at least from my kind of impressions, it feels like First Dragon isn't often that much of a fight, because people try to sneak it away with Udyr or Olaf. It's like, it's just generally about resets and stuff for first dragon. Whereas I tend to feel second dragon onwards tends to be much more of a brawl.
Often you will see a top lane gank or opportunity traded for the first dragon. You're right. We've seen a few early fights around dragons in the LJL, but it does, as you're saying, more be towards that second and third ones most likely, because particularly when one team has an advantage in bot lane, you don't have a great angle into the fight. You need to have one of your mid or bot lanes pushing in so you can have an approach for your jungler to safely get to that point. And also your supports too. Supports are very important in early game fights, particularly when you've got stuff like Alistar and the Thresh, which, while they don't get as much gold throughout the game, their regular abilities are very strong to compensate for that. They have a lot of utility. They don't necessarily scale well in terms of the stats that they buy, but the base utility they get, unless you're something like that Seraphine on the Sona, means that the early game fights are where you can really prevail.
I think that's fair, as Proud goes in for that level 1 headbutt. Alchemy shoved back into the other bush. How rude. Just walking up to a man and headbutting him. Who does that?
It's how he expresses affection. It's like, hey, come here, let me headbutt you. And unfortunately the message is not conveyed. And he now really doesn't like him.
That's clearly influenced Blitzcrank bots. Reading on this particular game seems to have power spikes being largely Burning Core favored through most of it. We'll see how that actually plays out in game, and Rayfarki did take a bit of a nasty trade from the Sky Splitter coming through with some of those frenzied mauls on top of it. The Lightning Bear does its work. And Nap will come in to throw a ward onto the Krug camp, but won't spot Graves anywhere nearby. He's done red into Raptors and has gone straight over towards his blue side jungle from there.
So Graves is not taking his Krugs. You often see this for red side players from the likes of Graves, where you'll just return for that. After you've done your first clear, return up to that top side, see if you can shield a gank in that top side. Now it's been warded out, particularly since Volibear was pushing in that first wave. It's not really going to be so impactful, though, from the side of Burning Core, as that information is given over to CGA.
Also appreciate the nice little tech there, doing blue and Gromp at the same time. It's always a nice touch if you're playing Graves doing that, as Nap finds another Sky Splitter, and Rayfarki definitely taking a fair amount of damage. I think he should still be able to walk out. Does have to flash, though, and wait, that's just first blood over to Nap. Does not get the flash in time, and that's just the 1v1 kill in top lane.
Early Volibear pressure in lanes. You see it a little bit from the likes of Euronext, and people forget about Volibear. He has a strong set of regular abilities, much like we were talking about the supports. But of course, these brawlers in the top side don't necessarily need to build themselves damage to have themselves that solo kill pressure. Nap having a standout laning phase so far.
And you saw once forced away from the Scuttle Crab in the bot side river at the same time as well. So once again, I would like to play for Scuttle Crabs, please. Lanes, give me some pressure, but unfortunately, you can see Kai'Sa and Alistar forced back, at least early on. Alistar doesn't really get to do as much as he would like until level 3. That's the problem there. Top side, Greg has died. We'll get a replay of this to see how on earth Nap managed to get this solo kill.
What's been happening is that he's been hitting so much with the pass-through of that lightning autos. His Conqueror gets stacked super early. He gets a lot of extra damage, the extra offensive stats coming through from that Volibear and the rune he's running. Didn't go for the press, the attack, or the grasp, or whatever. Just allows him to take the extended trades. And Rayfarki, after he missed that earlier body slam too, and missing out on a couple of those early trades, punished appropriately by that. But when we talk about Burning Core, they need to lane better. We normally don't say it about Rayfarki. This is a departure for the top laner of Burning Core.
It is a little bit, unfortunately, for Burning Core. Of course, the CS is still relatively even. All of that kind of jazz. There's a tier in inventory for Rayfarki, so, he's got something scaling up, and that's great news. But if Nap starts snowballing and this weak side, or this, we call it weak side, but this Gragas that just generally is very good at surviving whatever the matchup, isn't surviving whatever the matchup, then that is a real problem for Burning Core.
It is, because that's somewhat what you pick a Gragas for, to neutralize sidelines. He'll always wave clear, has a lot of ranged wave clear capabilities, even when he goes tank. All of his abilities are AoE. He gets to disengage and have that partial stun on the body slam too when he goes in with that. And now Rayfarki's sat there being like, alright, okay, losing top lane, lost both scuttles. There's a chance he gets dove. Have to see if there's going to be a trade for ones going towards the bottom side of the map, try and get himself a dragon. But this could be a win condition now for CJ on the top side of the map, as Rayfarki is not nearly as safe as he'd like to be.
And once didn't do the Krugs basically to make sure he would be around for the crab spawns. Doesn't get either of them because of lane pressure and things like Nap hitting level 6 and Conqueror again with those nasty trades. Of course, there are biscuits in inventory, makes things a bit difficult, but it means that this Graves is behind in tempo, is behind in farm by a significant amount. It's showing in a early 1,000-ish gold lead for CGA just purely off lane and that solo kill. And they'll get a dragon off it as well.
And you'll notice that Volibear's gone for the Ionian Boots Lucidity. You'll notice a lot of laners go for this. Heck, even Lilia can go for this too. Why is this important? Well, he's a melee champion, so he wants to keep sticking to his target. So his tier 2 boots are nice. They're good. They help you towards that end. Ionian Boots Lucidity, giving you 20 ability haste. Of course, that's a stat which gives you diminishing returns. The more of it you get, the less valuable subsequent ability haste is. But early into the game, 20 ability haste is, of course, giving you more than the 10% cooldown reduction the old Ionian boost used to give you with the straight cooldown reduction. It just gives you the ability to just kite down this Graves and also have a lot more access to those, as we were saying, quite strong basic abilities.
So early cooldown, well, ability haste, i.e. cooldown reduction, but under a different name and slightly different rule sets. But the point being, you get more of it. It's nice to have it early on. It's good for melee champions, and also you're not capped anymore on ability haste, which is always nice. So a lot more champions can go for it without having to worry about capping out at that old, what was it, 40% basically?
40%, yes. 45% with the Cosmic Insight from the Inspiration Tree, yes. So, and often that's what we would see from the likes of Oliver. You could even see them going Ice One Gauntlet into the Black Cleaver in last season, where you just try and get up to that early CDR and be like, all right, okay, I'm not going to have, or even, of course, you have like the Trinity Force builds too, where you just sat there and be like, okay, right, I'm always going to be chucking my abilities because they are so effective. More stuns, more shields. It gives me the ability in both team fights and in solo kills to kind of realize my champion dream, I suppose. You kind of sat there and be like, yes, this is exactly what I want out of this champion. Whereas nowadays, it's a little more nebulous as opposed to what you want to get out of these boots, particularly because, you know, boots for top laners often have been just that defensive amount. It's not like you ever really want Berserker Greaves on melee champions unless you're someone called Yasuo or Yone.
Unless you are Yasuo or Yone is a pretty big call, in fairness. Then Yasuo or Yone are very specific types of champion.
Well, the melee crit AD carries. No one else really...
Yes, exactly.
Tryndamere can do the same, but Tryndamere is weird.
Yeah, that's actually very true. Tryndamere probably does. And I suppose, would Fiora potentially go for Berserker Greaves?
No. She has too many auto-attack resets. And she's more of a caster, really, than an auto-attacker.
That's true.
You do get some.
Is fair. A lot of
you can say the same, so, well, why doesn't Riven do it? Yeah, it makes your auto-attacks a little bit more slick in terms of your auto-canceling, but it's not necessary nor the most efficient thing you can get in the top side, particularly because you are against, because unlike in bot lane where you're often against multiple, you know, mixed damage, even Thresh does a bit of magic damage compared to Zaya's entirely physical. If you're an AD carry or something like that, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to get Tabby or Merc Treads, and once is going to be like, you're not going to go take Herald, I'm going to take
it! He steals it away, just hops over the wall. It's going to try. He has to quick draw out of the gravity well, but we'll just walk over, take the eye. Has Gary to come back over. And that was the smoothest steal I have seen in some time. Crime City Graves gets away with a drive-by.
I was going to sound like, oh, this is a thing happening. I should probably stop talking about inane things and talk about what's happening on the screen. As Monster says, yeah, you know, no, it's okay. I got this. Don't worry about it. Nothing dramatic. It was always going to happen this way. Very smooth, very slick. And gets away with a Herald. That's important.
But he basically, what I really appreciated was he did the blast cone while the auto also did the last hit on the red buff, then gets over and steals the Herald. Like, that is about as efficient as it gets for a jungler.
That it is. So we have junglers returning back to farming. There is still a jungle advantage for Cassin. He has the camp advantage. A lot of that was off the early double scuttles. Scuttles give you a lot of XP and gold, of course, because they are more contested as opposed to the camps inside your own jungle. And it hasn't really led to much, though, because even with the first blood in that top side, we only have like a 200 gold lead. Burning Core have not capitulated in any sense of the word right now.
They haven't, and I credit to them for kind of stabilizing and pulling this gold lead back a little bit. CS leads have kind of diminished. In fact, honestly, Yuhi here up ahead of in CS, which was perhaps a little unexpected in some ways, but it's doing relatively well down here, and that leaves us with a pretty even game state, with the difference being Herald versus Dragon right now.
It is. Second dragon spawning in a minute. It's a cloud dragon, which means we're not going to have a cloud rift. Hooray. Maybe it's something interesting to play around. So we'll have that Infernal or that Mountain Soul. If CJ were to get that and get 2 early dragons, that does a lot of things for their late game, or at least mid game decision making, because they can say, right, we can give up a dragon, or we can, of course, force the hand of Burning Core. That's the typical thing you do tend to do with those dragons. And it's important because if they do feel like they are behind in a certain role and they're waiting for an extra item onto their Victor or onto their Xayah, they have the liberty to choose that as opposed to Burning Core, which would kind of have to take a back seat in that decision making.
Okay. So, that's the call. Is that back seat in decision making? Is that going to be problematic? Once as well has got this Herald and some time to use it. Might try and get some tempo off it, some pressure, that counterweight that you can use the Herald for. Or, of course, he could just save it because vision control on the river largely is burning cores right now. There is one vision ward. There we go. Finally get the right name for it. In the pit that is spotting this out. But they're going to start it up regardless. Alchemy is around and Udyr is coming down. Either way, Dragon started. Burning Core are going to do this pretty quickly, but Alchemy's going to be on vision. Once taken down about half HP, and the Dragon likely to just reset here. Does so. But CGA just going to walk straight up, and once might not be able to get in anymore, and they've just leashed it, unfortunately, for CGA. Burning Core not quick enough to come and defend their jungler.
No, level disadvantage in that jungle too, even though once had the earlier steal, harder to do it in this case. Both top laners had teleport, and I suppose at this point, Rayfarki waiting for his first item. This is going to be the AP Gragas, by the way. It's not going to be the tank, not going to be the Frostbite Gauntlet coming out for the Night Harvester. Herald Summon on the bot side. That's probably going to get, it's not going to get destroyed. It's going to get a couple of turrets. It's 2 plates over to once, and I don't think anyone else was close enough to get that gold. It was just onto their graves.
I wonder whether Yuhi might still have been close enough. I think he did enough damage to the turret beforehand as well, possibly to get involved. So I believe he might have been. I think I saw it, but it was at the very edge of my screen. So
either way, the dollar gets a that dollar gets the Immortal Shield Bow coming in for once now. That's important. The first mythic of the game completed for that champion. Rayfarki now getting arrested on by Nap. But he also missed
and because he didn't get shut down, it potentially would have done a bit more damage. But actually, he does have to flash out regardless, isn't that, Rayfarki? Of course, he's not gone towards a tanky build, so it does take a bit more damage than perhaps he was hoping for. But survives. But that's ult and flash down for the side of Burning Core's top laner.
So the nature of this AP Gragas, though, particularly against the Victor too, because he has no way to really defend himself against a Gragas flank, is that if you do get vision control in this game for Burning Core, this Victor has to be very, very careful. Heck, even the Udyr needs to be, right? Because if you get punted into the team and lose half your health whilst you're at it, that means that someone like this Azir and the Kai'Sa can just whittle you down with their very bursty combos, even though they do have higher sustained DPS too. They do have that burst component to them.
Once again, going for an invade, but again, Cassin is just there, and he can't pull off another one of those drive-by steals. Alchemy's around as well, so Burning Core abort the attempt on the blue buff and get themselves out of danger.
Speaking of danger, there really isn't that much to be spoken of across this map. I mean, it's another calm early game, and this is, again, one thing which the LJL just tends to do. We tend to wait until the big fights. We don't tend to fight for raptors or side lane dives or anything like that. Speaking of side lane dives, Udyr is on the top side of the map, coming outside of vision, but it looks like it is just supporting that vision control. If you had the level 2 Gnarly Bear ult available, of course only level 10, and it gives you a huge amount of damage, and if it was even off cooldown, maybe you could disable that tower and threaten Rayfarki just a tad more, but nothing that TJ want to risk anything for right now.
Cassin does get a clean invade onto the red buff, knows that he's strong side up here, knows that Nap has got pressure to spare, and all the while Burning Core are starting to move towards this bot side to trade it out. They would love to get this first turret. It's very low, and if they can get a wave in, they probably have got a chance here. He just took 2 turret shots, which is probably not what he wants to do, as one steals away some Krugs in trade. Turret plates just fall, and CGA will try and get some pressure on this mid lane turret, but Garyaru has returned. And relatively even in the turret plates, though slight advantage to Burning Core. It looks like first turret about to fall over to them as well.
One of those plates will have been missed, effectively, by CJ. Would have got 2 on one side, and then 1 would have fallen 2 minions as champion was walking away. So that's why there is disparity in the gold, even though the plates are the same. It just wasn't claimed by CGA. What we did see in that trade was that mid lane outer turret for the side of Burning Core took a bit of a beating. Burning Core once tries to steal the big raptor with the ult, realizing, right, we're not fighting, I can use my ult for utility purposes, and still misses the big raptor. Kassin smites it away.
I kind of
That's
appreciate
the level of action we have in this game.
Okay.
Once he's using his ult to try and steal camps.
The problem is, this is actually the second Herald has spawned, and that does mean that ult will be on cooldown and potentially make it a lot harder for him to come and contest this Herald. Though I suspect maybe he just said, there's no way we get to fight for that Herald, so I'll just burn it here.
And the other thing is that actually it's becoming a bit problematic for once to be behind in XP, because he knows he can't go for the straight smite fight. Kassin ahead in the game on the power farming champion of Udyr, who just clears so damn fast. Once is sat there, not having quite as much access to his camps, and Kassin is kind of running around the map just doing whatever he wants with the lane pressure he has. Once is like, well, I have to try and do something somewhere.
And this is all off the fact that basically Cassin managed to get the double scuttle early and put him down 10 CS. It's kind of snowballed from there. Once got a great look on, as we said, that very stylish steal on the Herald earlier on. But aside from that, it's just been a little bit frustrating. At least he's still farming relatively well, is once, but he is still down some amount. And you can see that turbo chem tank alongside the boots and the rest of it for Udyr, definitely giving him the edge right now. But we got 20 seconds until an Infernal Drake, and Burning Court will definitely want to fight this because it will put CGA at soul point. Gold is dead even. Oh yeah, the Cassin has got the smite advantage though, and teleports are available for both top laners.
They are, and also Mythics are available for both top laners. Both have those cooldown boots, and then there's a Night Harvester and a Trinity Force completed. Once and GalliAro trying to find their way into mid lane, but with Milan, Alchemy, and Cassina waiting around the corner, they find it hard to approach that turret. In fact, so hard that the turret falls.
Does indeed. GalliAro did shuffle his way over there, but that does actually keep him away from the team right now, which could be problematic. But all the while, the Drake has started going down. Cassin wants to come in and try and steal it. It is taken by Once, who now has to flash away. In comes the Volley Bear with a massive Storm Bringer. Milan gets Once. That's a lot of the damage, but now Yuhi trying to survive. Milan as well is in a difficult position. The Flame, but the huge shuffle at the Acathian Rain claims a couple. Proud as well is putting the Bounce House down. Gets a load of damage down. Cassin trying to go in, but gets body slam and goes down as well. Massive team fight for Burning Core. They find 3.
Not only the Dragon the Burning Core they get a 3-4-1 against the run of play. In fact, getting that many kills only brings them just about even in gold. Ray Farkey with the hero play that fight punts Milan into the team. Had flash, had heal, had ult. It wasn't enough. Still gets hit by that skill shot. Didn't ult in time. I'm sure we're going to go see it in the replay. What happens? We see, I suppose, vision control for the side of Once. Nap is spotted coming into the backline. As soon as this Volley Bear gets into 3 people, I assumed that fight was over because Nap is so strong at this point in the game. We've got to see what happens to Milan. He's walking up. He walks into Proud's auto attack stun and cannot get out. Milan walks too close, doesn't get the damage down, and is punished massively for it. That is a huge teamfight win for Burning Core.
And it was such a weird little series of plays because it was even in gold and the mid lane turret goes down. And then Burning Core get the fight and even the gold back up and the dragon. And we're left at a very even state one more time.
But oh gosh, I mean, after a certain while, you expect certain things from players and you, due to the nature of the league, you start tempering your expectations, stuff like that. Milan this Super Week has struggled. He's struggled. He's been the Kaiser ulting into Mega Nart. He's been the Desire with ults not dodging the correct skill shots. That one, he walks into an Alistar's auto attack stun. You see it charging. You walk into melee range, give him a free CC ability onto you, and he gets put into the team. Once wishes he had more CC as he's getting stunned.
He does that. What a dash around. I can't, but Ray Farkey is here, tries to blow people away, but it just doesn't quite get far enough. The wall does the job, and Once just gets run like from miles away. He thought he was safe with Ray Farkey around, but it just doesn't work out that way. He does get picked off. Frustration for him, I am sure. But that is a nice little bit of good news for CGA, who just used the speed of Udyr to do Udyr things.
Just Udyr things. Chem Tank, Phase Rush, apparently to enough base damage to really threaten the Graves in that situation. Doesn't matter that he had the shield bow or his top laner nearby. It didn't work out for them. And while they did have that momentary advantage after that dragon fight, they are slowly losing across the board too, as it looks like they're going to lose their bot lane turret for the for that bot lane play.
Indeed, they will. GalliAro will try and shove in top and return the favor up there, but I don't know how easily done that will be. That'll be a 2-tower advantage to CGA at this point.
2-tower advantage and opens up the side lanes, which, speaking of the side lanes, it has been Nap winning in terms of the wave push and in terms of the pressure he's been exerting on the map, if not for the CS, right? I mean, Ray Farkey's still been farming effectively. He's still in this game. We saw the amount of damage he put out onto important targets in that last fight. What that has allowed, it's allowed GalliAro a bit more of a safe state in this game to scale up on this Azir. We saw in that last fight again. He was untouched in that last fight, and that was very important for the side of Burning Core. Question is, will be in the next fight, can this Volley Bear get on top of both the Kaiser and, of course, the Azir? Because if you take those two down, I think CJ have themselves a clean team fight win, but they are yet to kill the mid and AD carry at Burning Core.
I've got to call out a couple interesting items here, though. Specifically, Nathan has gone towards Banshee's Veil first.
Okay, so I think that's important because you know the threat of the Gragas flank. We did say, okay, with AP Gragas, Victor, who doesn't have the most offensive abilities in the world, can be under threat. making sure that Gragas has to pop the shield first, it means that the CC combo can't come in with a flash body slam into the cast, because the body slam would then get interrupted, which means that you have to hit poke combos, and that is basically onto smoke screen and all the Azir's long range abilities really popping that. So I think that is not an awful choice. Victor has a lot of base damage anyway, particularly when he's been involved in the game. Has 200 CS, has a number of them being cannon minions, and then has the 1 assist too. He's more than ready to start fighting around the upgrades on the Victor, even if he doesn't have the mythic item damage alongside that yet.
Well, speaking of fights that might be brewing, we've got 40 seconds until the Infernal Drake spawn again. So roll up, grab your tickets nice and early, because you can know this will be another big fight.
That it will be. This would be, of course, Infernal Soul Point, much like the last one would have been for CJ, and they're going to have to be kicking themselves over the last fight, because that was the game plan for them. They had the advantage heading into that fight. They had a strong top laner. The AD carry was in the game, and they got out Team Fort, bluntly put. On the other side, Burning Core, this is exactly in line with what we've seen of them before. Their laning phase can put them behind in the game, but they do have individual players who are willing and able to make those big plays if they have a more even game state. This is an even game state. Burning Core will have to show that once again to come out to a win and get themselves equal in that game score against CGA.
Dragon is started. Milan has got a Gale Force just in time, but that Dragon is just gone. It's out,
late.
but they will.
Just
and
too
Ray
late.
Farkey's on the side. He might be looking for a bit of a flank. There's a couple flashes that are still down. Galliardo's has just come up. Ray Wances has just come up. Literally seconds into that fight, which was maybe if CJ could have forced early, they could have punished that, but alas, no chance. And Burning Core pick up a second Drake, and CJ just not quite there on time, frankly.
No, they were just too late to the party. Vision control. Oh, they
he
catch
stepped back.
Yuhi!
He goes to flash away, but he's invisible, and now they've got to try and retreat. Alchemy has to flash out this time as well. Proud sidestepped it, left out. You have Yuhi in the lurch there. They've teleported him with Nap to try and get that alongside Nation. So it'll be Ray Farkey teleport down, but they don't actually get anything for that, and that will be Milan going for the Featherstorm. Does get out safely as people started dashing towards him there. Ooh, big root on a couple people, but no one else to follow up. For a second, I thought with that little bit of a stylish look, there might have been something more people from CGA just too far away.
So basically, the calculation in Milan's head there is, can I Gale Force away from the Azir if he has Flash? No, it probably isn't worth it. Goes for the Featherstorm. Galliardo has his discipline, trigger discipline, I suppose, and doesn't pull the ultimate. Means that it's a combo for absolutely nothing. He uses some basic ability cooldowns to get away the defensive ultimate from this AD carry. And that can be very important because, of course, the Flash was just taken away from his own AD carry. So both AD carries, all things said and done, having something taken away from them for relatively free.
Indeed. I feel so bad. Like, as much as we said, oh, Yuhi not sure about this guy. I mean, he's having a very good game. He's over 10 CS a minute, all that kind of jazz. 2-0-1. That's all good news for him. But that play in particular, I feel kind of bad for him because Proud sidestepped, and he sidestepped that basically left the hook to go straight to him instead. I was like, well, this is an Alistair with Flash. I think he would have been all right.
We've seen similar things. In fact, we actually saw a similar thing from Yuhi and Once in their first game of the day, where we saw a bubble get sidestepped by Yuhi and immediately just slap Once right in the face. He sat there like, this is less than fortunate.
Yeah.
That was, of course, in the base at that point, so
it's a
less relevant,
yeah,
I suppose.
Oh, boy. All right, well,
more. Go on.
Couple things to keep an eye on. Collector's complete for Graves. Zonya's complete, perhaps, for this Gragas as an interesting choice, alongside the voice staff. Basically, we're looking at second items mostly across the board from all members. Gargoyle's Stoneplate was the call from Volibear as well, just to make him a bit tankier and back up the 20 force damage. I suspect this Volibear will be going more towards a full tank option from here.
On the other side, Kassin has gone to the Force of Nature.
Yeah,
so when he starts taking damage, he gets more move speed. It gives you move speed as an item anyway. So more ability to stick to targets in these fights, and he already has the phase rush then. So what that means, all things added up with the chem tech active, you don't really get to run away in a straight foot race versus Kassin, although that's something that you know about Udyr anyway, right? That's kind of something you have to prepare for. It's not an unknown, unchecked factor at this point.
Okay, well, this game is still pretty much neck and neck. The difference really right now is the towers for CGA, which are proving a little frustrating for Burning Core. But they've got 2 Drakes apiece. Burning Core succeeded in securing the last 2. And that has left this game mere hundreds of gold apart. That is literally it right now.
It is, and neither team are really willing to make any plays. We're kind of sat here just all the
I know,
time,
like,
podcasting on the job.
I know. We've got a minute and a half. I think, until the Infernal Drake is up, and that will be solve point for either one of these teams, which I think
Pick
is
a
probably
number
our next
between 1
big...
and 10.
Yeah,
Is
4.
it 3?
Oh,
Is
okay,
it 4?
no, it was 4, yeah.
Ah, okay, cool. I was gonna be like, oh, I could just sit here and try and guess the number for one.
Oh, right, I just told it out loud.
Yeah, oh no, my grand plan. My grand plan has been
yeah, like, look,
it's been foiled.
Yeah,
wait, that was red buff being taken by Kassin's aura. It got taken by his Kentang.
No.
Oh, that's so sad. That was more interesting than I think I had to say.
That's a missing ping or two. Definitely not Udyr taking that one. He definitely didn't take that red buff.
Sure, but he sat there leashing it for his AD carry, who then uses the Featherstorm, the Blade Caller, way too early, and then just kind of gets taken away from him. Like, that one, I'm not going to put that one in Kassin. That is completely on Milan.
Yeah, that's some salt.
Save your feathers.
Well, Milan plucks themselves and doesn't get anything for it. And that's the end of that one. Scuttle Crab secured around Baron, which I suppose is starting to become more and more of an option as these items start coming through. Kaiser, of course, plus Azir do ridiculous Baron damage, especially when you've got AP, Krakus, and Graves to back them up. But it's not like Xayah and Victor are slouches on the Baron either. Either way, Infernal Drake in 5 seconds. Burning Core are going to start teleporting in, and it's time for the fight. Yeah, finally get there first. It has been a while, and it's going to go down way too quickly. Rayfaki's on the side, has to belly slam over the wall. That's a hook they want to want. He flashes away, then they can't really keep going. Alchemy taken very low in trade. Wants to continue to go. That is the collateral damage coming through. Rayfaki on the backside still has got a massive combo available. Casting so low, it would be collector range in seconds. Big shove away, but it's timed out by Nap. He still gets shut down. It's traded back. Top laner for top laner. The soldiers go forwards. But that is it, and the health bars are so low from CG. I think Burning Gore can think about either going for this mid lane turret, or maybe even if they're feeling very bold, the Baron.
I think the minions are going to die a little quickly. They will still end up finishing that turret. That fight was super frantic because that wasn't actually about the objective. The objective was already gone. It was a pick, then the reaction to the pick, then the reaction to that pick. It was just kind of what was thrown in front of these teams. I'm not really sure either of these teams really wanted to have that fight. It was just opportunistic. You can tell by the way that they approached it. So we see immediately CJ get themselves to the dragon first. They failed to do that for the last two, even though they were angling for a fight. You can see Rayfaki over the wall. There's a blast cone. You can understand that he does have the ability to start flanking in. What really happens is this hook kind of taking everyone by surprise. Because you see the hook land, you're like, all right, well, I guess we should fight now. Nap is left alone in the front line. Pride gets right on top of the Victor, but it isn't enough. Nap on the other side trying to disrupt that back line and does a really good job of avoiding the Emperor's Divide using his own ultimate. You become unstoppable, even though you still take the damage from the ability passing through you. But Yuhi still had the ult, still had enough damage to take down Nap, and Nap falls for his first death of the game.
Does it with a shutdown as well, which is always nice news. And once again, it's pretty even game state, but the sole point is secure for CGA. And instead, we're going to turn our eyes to the Baron, which will be a bit of a dance. And that was a beautiful hook. Alchemy's landed a couple clutch ones. Teleport started to come through. That is the ult away from Rayfaki, who now goes golden. But they've got to try and disengage. It's not the tankiest Gragas. The shove comes through, but Nap just jumps over it. And Milan gets that kill. It's a 1-for-1 right now. Or 1 for none, rather, right now. Once finally coming in. Nap is getting pretty low, but Proud's in an awkward position. He is tanky, but the healing from those frenzied mauls are just so strong. Alchemy goes through it. Yuhi does not get rooted, but Gadiaru is in a difficult position. Yuhi has escaped, but that will be a shutdown onto Gadiaru. Alongside Proud going in, the Acacian Rape and the turret shot will claim the jungler, though, which might stop the Baron start.
By hook or by crook, Alchemy is not willing to lose this game. The only fights that have happened in this game so far have been through Alchemy landing opportunistic hooks. It happens that the dragon takes everyone by surprise. That second one, though, does not for the side of CGA. It takes Rayfaki out of the fight, though. Gets him killed even through that Zhonya's. He's clearing vision. That's what he's doing. Saying, okay, well, everyone's been clearing vision this entire game. Why shouldn't I still be doing the same? Catches Rayfaki as he body slams away. Doesn't get the distance. The Lantern comes back in. Milan is running forward, and the reaction is just not quite quick enough nor appropriate enough from Burning Core. The flash is away from Gadiato. He can't go for a big shuffle at this point either. It's already been used, failing to disengage the fight, and the carries of CJ are full HP. Another hook lands at the back of that fight onto Yuhi, means he has to flash out of the fight. He has to take so much damage, and Burning Core, after getting CC'd again by these death sentences time and time again, lose this fight effectively off of just the individual plays of Alchemy.
Yeah, I think Yuhi with that killer instinct there probably saved Burning Core the Baron, though. So last gasp sort of grab on that, and the goal is still not even 1,000 apart. It's been so close this entire game. Finally, the towers are looking a little bit more even. Burning Core have cleared out all of those outer ones, but he just takes Gale Force forwards, doesn't quite fall, and gets to walk his way out. That was inches away from serious trouble, but it does actually mean because the AD carry has to back, or at least heal up, that CGA feel confident to start up this Baron.
He does have second rank of Kaiser Ultimate. Why is he sticking around on that HP?
No, he can't walk forwards! Oh my days, the supercharge keeps 11. Nap is now charging around. He's got it back towards the way. He's still got the healing. Once it's over the back, needs to go for the steal again. He's going in and again. Well comboed. That's the burst you get out of an AP Gragas and a Graves. And they take it and get out while everybody else was focusing on Yuhi's HP bar. Once and Rayfaki had their eyes on the prize. And they'll take a drink to celebrate. An alcoholic and an explosive one at that.
Not an alcoholic, but an alchemist. Alchemy stole away this game from Burning Core over the course of a couple of fights. Once is not done with this game, though. That Baron steal saves the game for Burning Core. They haven't managed to reset effectively before this dragon. There's the soul in 20 seconds. That might be the next fight of this game. It's a scrappy affair, not in the way we saw it last year. This game is going the length, though.
All right, Nation is back. He's teleported his way in, and we are all set up for a tumultuous fight. That's a hook, but it's only on to Proud. I'm not sure you want that one. Cassin is here. Once does take a little bit of chunk from that Death Ray. Has to quick draw out of the gravity field as well. Dragon started by CGA. They want this. Rayfaki on the flank, though, has got his ultimate available again. It could just all happen one more time. Rayfaki on a wide flank at this point. Does go down to Cassin, but here comes the rest of the fight. How much do they lose for the soul is now the question. Nation goes down. In goes Nap, trying to go to Yuhi. Gadiadu is dead as well, and Yuhi falls to Nap, who flashed in. They're going to get a big knock-up. Once he's trying to dash around, and it's just not enough. They lose the soul. They lose the fight. It's a double over to Milan at the end of it all, and that might just have broken the game completely over.
CGA are a team of heroics and tragedies. We see both on full display this game. One stuck in that mid lane, trying to push in anything, still has that Baron buff, needs to get back quickly, can buff up those minions at least, but I don't think it's going to save at least the bottom inhibitor for the side of CGA, who really want to go and take that.
Teleporting.
Teleporting is the base. This might try and be the game-ending play.
They're thinking about it. It's still 15 seconds on both the big carries from Gadiadu and Yuhi. They're just going to back away with the inhibitor secure. They didn't want to let the wave get cleared away by once. Let's have a look at the Baron steal first off, because that's just a gorgeous combo from Rayfaki.
It is, but on the other side, like, Yuhi walking up and toying with CGA, honestly, that felt like the kind of play which loses you the game. What happens to CJ here is that they let the Gragas barrel come in. He explodes the Q and the barrel at the same time. 20 HP on that smite. In fact, actually, Udi didn't even smite. He didn't manage to click the button before the objective went down. Just well played by Once and Rayfaki to combo down the objective.
From 1800 HP to none in a matter of moments. Nicely done. And then we come over to this dragon fight, and you think, I honestly thought with Rayfaki around from the back end of this fight that they could go for it, but Once can't even get closer for a steal.
So he doesn't have flash, which is a big thing, and also the other thing. Watch this second death laser about to come in here, right? It's he's got the gravity field down, zoning them out. Hits Once, hits Yuhi, hits them both again with the aftershock of it, and that's half HP from both of these carries. Even with the huge amount of AP built up on the side of Gadiadu and stuff, Gadiadu gets absolutely crapped on by Milan, who gets right on top of him. Doesn't have to flash forward for it, just uses his ult and then the further recall. And the backline of CGA comes up tops, because Nahun with that death ray really saved that fight for them, I think. They're taking away half HP from AD carry and jungle, really important.
Starting at 2,000 gold, but we've got another fight going on. Proud gets pulled back, and in goes Nap to buy space for the front line. Nap gets shoved away, and Proud manages to escape. Well worked out. That's a big hook onto Gadiadu, who has to flash away. The damage comes back onto Alchemy, though, who's very, very low, as is Nap. Collateral damage, not quite enough to cause collateral damage. And everyone backs away alive, but bleeding.
No one dies. Okay, right, so we're just going to have a kind of a gentleman's agreement to just reset. We're still very even in gold. Doesn't take into account the Infernal Soul on side of CGA, though. They are even in the amount of Infernal Dragons. They still have the same amount of AP, but the extra proc does do a lot of work for the side of CGA. When you do have the likes of Victor, who does manage to hit those E's every so often, of course, it does scale with your AP. That poke damage coming out of Nation now is more like one-shot damage.
Blitzcrank box has given an 81% chance for CGA to come out with this victory. They are, of course, in a bit of a roller coaster game. He's gone back and forth, but they've largely had at least the statistical advantage in this game. For now, though, it's still going on. Still only 1,000 gold. Has it ever gone beyond 1,000 gold? It feels like in this game. Like, it's been like, I don't think we've seen more than 2 at most in this game.
It's been very short leash on this gold lead for sure. What that does mean is that when we're getting into this late game, we do have this Infernal Soul, and we have like 3 items, 4 items on our mid laners and whatever. It's the same for both sides. 4 items on both AD carries. Heck, and Graves has an Infinity Edge and a Collector. If once gets on top of Nation or Milan, it doesn't matter that there's a Banshee's Veil on the side of Nation. He done dead.
Yeah, but of course, once there's got, there is a world where people die, but the thing is, you're on the other side, like a Siphon Power from Nation. Like, he hits a good Q and just like, goodbye, Gadiatu. He just dies.
He doesn't have himself the Lich Bane, which is like the true burst combo with that, but he does have 4 items, one of which is that Seraphs, which gives you a large amount of AP. So yes, with only the Murkrez on the side of Gadiatu, yes, that is certainly going to hurt.
Of course, yes, there's some slight hyperbole there, of course, and you're right, there is no Lich Bane, you're correct. However, with Infernal Soul behind it, it's going to hurt, is basically what we're getting at, but this late into the game, everybody's going to start hurting. I mean, it's a full AP Gragas, it's a full damage Graves. That's just a lot of damage across the board. I will say that there is more tankiness for CGA, just innately, and that might buy them space to keep Nation and Milan alive, and Nap's been doing more than enough work considering he has built off tank at this point.
I mean, you say that, but honestly, Nap is not that tanky at this point in the game. The tankiest person on this board is Proud when he's got his ultimate on. That's the thing which Burning Core have to play around. If Alistair can get into the backline and hopes that Milan walks into another one of those auto-attack stuns from the trample, that's something that they can play around. Proud needs to get in and mess things up, try and force out one of these defensive abilities. Nation now going straight into the thick of things. This is dangerous to Burning Core.
It's going down very, very low. They're going to try and get in and get it out. They've taken the Baron. Now they've got to try and escape Cassid. They're running away. Proud is in trouble. Yui went into the gravity field! He killed Instinct into the gravity field, and he's gonna fall for it. That was just not okay. Gadiatu is going to survive and run away, but Rayfaki is left golden, and he'll go straight down. That statue dies. Don't want the Pygmalion to come true today, and once is left on the other side of this fight. Like, I want to survive. The end of the line comes out, and that might just be exactly what this is. Got walls to hop over. He's got a blast cone to work with as well. Oh my days, he's trying to run away from.
No, he's really strong, though.
He's got really, really strong. He's got a shield bow to work with, but here comes everybody else. Doesn't quite have the damage. He can't get the 5%. Collector doesn't proc, and he can't quite get it, and that'll be once dying as well. It's just Gadiatu left with the buff. He was inches away from getting that in the 1v3.
Both AD carries dive into the backline and die for the attempt. First, it starts off with Yuhi. You're going to see that coming through. One of the important things which happened right at the start of this fight. Nation doesn't get his Banshee's Veil popped. Rayfaki, he's trying to put a target onto Nation's back. We talked about how important that is for this Victor. Trying to punt him back into the team is just not available. Rayfaki misses his body slam. Nation gets to run around the back end of this fight. Just as Milan walks straight into one, so gets crit down to absolute 0. The Infinity Edge so huge from this Graves, and once level 18 coming into this fight, did a damn good job of trying to carry his team, but now he's still dead for this Elder Dragon attempt.
And the Elder Dragon is not an attempt, it is a surefire thing. It is taken by CGA. They've got a Soul plus Elder Dragon. It was close for a while, but I think those two buffs together may well prove far too much for Burning Core to consider overcoming. This AP Gragas now at 0, 5, and 4 just hasn't found the flanks they were looking for. Yuhi diving in the way he has, it's proving problematic in these late game fights.
But the thing is that there's 1 minute left of the Baron buff, because they've had to, CGA have stopped off to take the Elder. They don't have waves in position. Burning Core managed to push them out, which means that, CGA don't get to use the rest of this Baron buff. It's actually a negative Baron power play because of Burning Core collecting waves, getting kills, and of course getting those waves pushing across the map, which means that CGA in return don't get those towers. It's a low economic advantage for CGA from that objective.
Low economic advantage is one way of putting it, and you're right, they do at least get it, but how much can they actually get done with it is a very salient question to be asking, and we're stuck now at nearly 40 minutes, and yes, CGA have an obvious stat advantage with various buffs with that Infernal Soul, but it's not like people at once haven't been making their lives incredibly difficult.
Oh gosh, and so much of this game is kind of these players making their own lives difficult.
Yeah,
I look
yeah.
at both these AD carries and I'm like, hang on, you dived in a little too deep.
Oh,
Alchemy's going deep.
Wait, but there's a shield now. Alchemy's in a bit of a bother himself. He's been executed! There it comes through. And of course, it's Alchemy who gets the breath of life, or rather death, coming through. And that's surely game. Surely in the 5 versus 4. Surely with the inhibitors now falling. They only had a small window to use that Elder buff. And they find it. Alchemy with another hook. As far as people making trouble for other teammates, he's managed it. Now Nap gonna get punted away. Rayfaki goes golden, but Graves has gone down trying to find something onto the rest of CGA. And now without the AD carries, Burning Core in a 3 versus 5. They have no Nexus turrets, and Crest Gaming Act. It was close, it was bloody, it was scrappy, but they will close it out.
Not an exact science as League of Legends, but luckily CJ have themselves an alchemist in the bot side. That Thresh honestly felt like the difference between these two teams, and CGA secure themselves a bit of a gap between the bottom of the table and themselves.
All right, well, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for holding on in that one. It was a close back and forth. But to read how that one went a little bit deeper, we're going to go for a quick break and come back with an analyst desk, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to the desk. LJL, officially unofficial, bringing you coverage of the LJL spring split rather. We're not quite in the summer there. It's such a nice day outside, and I'm inside talking about League of Legends. So it's how I got that confused. Master One initialized, Nightmare over on the other side, gentlemen. We just witnessed Crest Gaming Act get that victory over Burning Core, and there's a fair few things to cover for this post-game lobby. It took a while for anything to really start getting going. For the first 30 minutes, neither team really had a notable lead, and let's be real, for most of this game, neither of these teams had a notable lead outside of some of the neutral objectives, and obviously the only thing I really want to bring up is that Crest Gaming Act were able to secure the first early dragons. Burning Core were able to get some kills, but it was very to and from between these two teams, right?
Yeah, it really was. Neither team managed to run away with the lead. It looked like CGA might manage to do it in the early game. Nap got a really good solo kill. Once was kind of forced away from both early scuttle crabs, and you're thinking, well, maybe this is it. But then Once basically does the smoothest drive-by of his life with getting the red buff auto on the blast cone at the same time, then goes and basically steals the herald as it's being started. At least it's like, basically in the space of one auto, managed to get red buff into the pit, steals herald. It's like, all right, that's done. And at that point, managed to use that to keep the gold a little bit more even. And yes, they lose the first two drakes, but from there, they at least managed to keep parity and start contesting those drakes a little later on. So credit to Burning Core not letting it run away. Maybe some questions about CGA allowing ones to just walk into the pit from behind it.
I mean, credit to Burning Core even further is obviously they were able to get those first they were able to steal away a dragon from the side of Crest Gaming Act, and then they were able to get 3 kills, and they only lost their jungler throughout it. So Burning Core, Nightmare, were making some preferable trades.
For sure. A lot of it is on Burning Core for being decisive about when they were going towards the dragon, and what that meant is that CJ turned up late for like 2 dragons in a row. In this one big fight, there were a number of misplays, as we were saying. There was as soon as Naps flew into the backline with the ultimate, I thought, this is done. Volley Bear had a solo kill earlier, really strong at this point in the game. Second rank of ultimate, which has really high base damage. I don't see how Burning Core can get away with this. They can get away with it because Milan decides that he wants to take on his own CC and walks into the trampling Alistair, who then just autos him for the stun, and then Rayfarky hadn't used his combo yet, so he gets hit by the damn explosive cast too. Takes all of his HP, does get to ult at the back end of it, but he dies and Gary Iro gets to clear up house. So yeah, I mean, they do lose their jungler. That's what happens when Nap flies into the backline. But a couple of choice misplays from the side of Burning Core means that from the side of CJ means that Burning Core clean up the fight, and they run away with that, and from that fight, and they even up the game once more, even though the early game had slightly gone in CJ's favor.
Throughout the rest of the game, I'm going to zoom on a fair bit further because we do see Burning Core getting the second dragon there. But I want to zoom on to the fight where it all started because Alchemy themselves landed a really solid hook over the wall. It was allowing them to prevent Rayfarky from getting away on this Gragas, and initially it's coming to you. Alchemy was a critically important member for Crest Gaming Act's victory here.
He really was. I mean, the early game was a little quiet, but then kind of probably about post that 20-minute mark, at this point when both teams had kind of got 2 dragons apiece, it was neck and neck in the goal, but once was getting scary, and AP Gragas, lots of bursting, oh, maybe Burning Core can do this. Alchemy just starts landing hook after hook. He catches Gragas belly slamming away from a ward. They get the kill on him, force him to use all his summons. They get him. Then he lands a hook onto Yuhi straight after that forces Yuhi out of the fight. And just time after time in a lot of these fights, these hooks were really, really critical. And we have at points criticized this player for overstepping. In this game, it felt like he could do no wrong. Was hitting a lot of really good mid to late game hooks on that Thresh. Did a lot of work.
And something to really credit Crest Gaming Act, they made decisive plays, but Burning Core and Once and Rayfarky were up to their tricks at it again, and they were able to secure the Baron, stealing that away from Crest Gaming Act. And coming over to you, Nightmare, I was like, oh my god, they're going to lose the Baron. This is going to be so bad. Oh no. Oh, and then Crest Gaming Act later then go, hey, oh no, Burning Core go, hey, we can do the Baron. No, no,
No.
no, you
So-
couldn't.
So the Baron
And
still was
yeah.
really slick. Don't get me wrong. It was It's like what a lot of teams learned playing against Misfortune in spring last year.
Yes.
You don't
Sure.
really get to hold the Baron at a comfortable HP. You have to hold it at like if you want to hold the Baron, you have to hold it at like 5,000 HP rather than like you've 3 to 2.5k, something like that. Because when you've got someone flying in like a Graves who's got crit items, and you've got the AP Gragas who's relatively fed in this game too, has the fully charged
Yeah.
Q, hits the explosive cask, and then it gets down to about 20 HP before the last tick of damage secures it for Graves. Happens so fast that actually the Udyr doesn't even manage to land a smite in general, and
No.
really slick combo out of the top two from Burning Core, and then of course it doesn't really work out so nicely for them when they try the Baron themselves. Maybe they should have just stuck towards trying to do those deals, because when they were stuck in that pit, yeah, particularly Nation manages to dance around a lot of different skill shots. Rayfaki misses the body slam, and then Yuki kind of dives into his own death. At least Milan dives into his own death onto once on the other side of that, so both AD carries kind of like giving themselves
Yeah.
up to the Elder Gods and praying for the souls in the afterlife. But yeah, Burning Core struggling around the actual straight up fights after that one fight in the early game, and that really came up quite visually there in that Baron fight.
Yeah, and because of that Baron punt from Burning Core in a way, it allowed Crest Gaming Act to go and secure the dragon. And Initialize, come to you for the final part. This was just Crest Gaming Act going through a sequence of play that felt very familiar from them.
Yeah, they'd managed to get themselves to Soul. It was, Soul Point basically for both of these squads, but CGA secured it. They then managed to get the Elder Dragon buff on top of this. Okay, it's not very much difference between the gold. Yes, there's a damage discrepancy perhaps, but we've got Infernal plus Elder. The only thing is we've only got about a minute to use it because of the buff overlap. And then they got a hook onto Yuhi and blow him up, and from there it is all done. They managed Alchemy again with these clutch. He gets the execute for it as well, with even after Yuhi goes golden to try and buy time. So Alchemy rightly getting the kill he was earned on that one for the pick, and kind of from there it's a 5v4 versus Elder Dragon Infernal Soul, and there's not much more to write home at that point. It's all she wrote.
It really was, and that's how the game ended. Longest game of the day, may I add, gentlemen. So well done with that one. Well done.
We're alive.
They made you work for it. They really,
Well,
really
still woke
did.
me up a bit. The needed
Oh,
it.
true. But with that said, gentlemen, it's time that we now begin our blast from the past coverage of the LJL. We're going to be now doing the first 4 games, ladies and gentlemen. So all the live games are now finished. If you've already watched all of the games coverage, now you can just kind of chill back and relax while we bring you the first 4 games of the day. And that will be beginning with a V3 double bill, ladies and gentlemen. First game of the day is going to be Axis facing off versus 3-3, and then following that one, it'll be Rascal Jester versus V3 Esports. We're going to go to a quick break, but when we come back, V3 Esports facing Axis. Don't go anywhere.